Is Powder Springs the best suburb in all of Metro Atlanta? Well, there's a few different factors that would determine this, and one of those factors is definitely going to be the public school system. There are lots of suburbs all around Metro Atlanta, at least 100, arguably, depending on how you look at it. And Powder Springs is one of these suburbs that has so many great things going for it. And I think it's one of these suburbs that kind of flies under the radar. Not a lot of people consider this one, and I think it's really doesn't get enough attention. I think it's one of these suburbs that is very much up and coming, and there's a lot of great things going on here in Powder Springs. So let's talk about why I think this is arguably the best suburb. When it comes to public schools, there are lots of factors: home prices, the community, the commute to Atlanta, what the people are like, what the area is like. But another one of those big factors is the public school district. And so for many people who have kids in school age, they are looking for public schools, and they look at these ratings online, and there are multiple sources that rate the public schools, and it can be hard to decipher all of these public school ratings. But the one that we use most often is greatschools.org. And so there is like a scale of 1 to 10, and very often people are looking for at least an 8 out of 10. Sometimes 7 out of 10 is kind of too low, or for most people 6 out of 10 is definitely too low. But anything 8 or above for most people, I have found, is kind of like acceptable. And the amount of public schools in Metro Atlanta that are 8 and 9 or 10 out of 10 is surprisingly not that many. Out of the 100 suburbs in the area, many of these schools are lower than an 8 out of 10, but Powder Springs has a high school that is rated a 9 out of 10, according to greatschools.org. So to find such a great suburb on the north side, to be having a public school that's a 9 out of 10, this is definitely a big plus for many people. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. Another big factor, of course, for whether or not this is a good suburb to live in is how far it is from Atlanta, because very often people will live in these suburbs and then work in Atlanta, or they need to go to Atlanta for different things. Maybe you need to get to the airport, or it's events and like that nightlife that you're looking for. So it makes sense that people don't want to live 2 hours away from Atlanta. You don't want to live in the country. You don't want to like live way far out there. And while you can find great home prices that are super affordable way out in the country, it's not worth it because that would be too far. So we want to find good suburbs that still have affordable homes that also have good commute to the city of Atlanta. And Powder Springs has a commute time of about 40 minutes from the center of Powder Springs to Midtown Atlanta. It's about 40 minutes if there's no traffic. If there is like the typical kind of rush hour traffic that you find, then you're looking at more like 60 minutes. And if it's bad rush hour traffic, then you might be looking at more like an hour and 15 minutes. So still somewhat reasonable, as long as you're about an hour away. For most people, that's kind of the top of the limit, but at least Powder Springs is not way out there in the country where it's going to take you all day or 2 hours to get to Atlanta. And ultimately what this all boils down to is that so many people, when they call me and they say, hey, we're looking for like the best place to live, what they're rightfully so, what they're looking for is like the area that has the best public school and the best commute, and the community is good and it's family friendly and the home prices are affordable. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to find all of these things together because, as you can imagine, those areas that are super family friendly and have the best public schools and the best houses, they also tend to have the highest price homes. And so you can also find the areas that have the low priced home. You can get a 5-bedroom home for like $300,000. You can find that in Metro Atlanta, but you're going to be in a really bad part of town where like nobody wants to live. Like the people who live there don't want to live there. And so you kind of have to be careful about what part of Metro Atlanta you're in, because while the home prices might be good, you might have a terrible school district there. And so it's hard to find all of these things together. And that's why I think Powder Springs is a good area. But of course, it depends on what the home prices are in Powder Springs. So let's talk about that as well. When it comes to homes in Powder Springs, we're looking at a lot of homes that were built in like the 90s and early 2000s. Every once in a while, we see new construction homes as well in Powder Springs because this is an area that still has a lot of land and still room for development. We're seeing new construction companies and new neighborhoods being developed in Powder Springs. And so you can also find new construction there as well. As for the homes from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, we have a lot of homes there that have like wood siding. Many of the homes have been remodeled. This is a very common thing that has happened in many parts of Metro Atlanta, but especially areas like Powder Springs. Lots of companies that have purchased these homes, done a lot of remodeling to the homes. Thankfully, this is like something that we really need a lot of here in Atlanta, like a modernizing of the homes here. And so that has happened a lot there in the Powder Springs area. Another thing when it comes to the homes in Powder Springs that's super important is that it's just west of Marietta, and part of Powder Springs is in Cobb County and part of it is in Paulding County. And very often people who are looking for a home in Marietta also often consider Powder Springs as they expand their search because these two cities neighbor each other. So if you're working in Marietta, maybe Lockheed Martin or something near the Cumberland area, but you don't want to be limited to the Marietta area, very often people will choose to expand over to Powder Springs. And this is another reason why Powder Springs is such a great area. The homes in Marietta are very similar as the homes in Powder Springs. One big difference, though, is that you find less HOAs in Powder Springs. And I know many people, especially from other states like California or New York or Florida, you're looking for homes that are not in an HOA. You're sick of those HOAs where you're from and you want to live in an area that like is not going to have a Karen driving around in a golf cart, you know, and like checking everybody's grass length or the color of their home or the bushes to make sure that everything is in like accordance with the rules, and you kind of want to stay away from those things. Well, here in Georgia, it's not nearly as bad as other states. It's very rare to find one of these neighborhoods here where the HOA has one of those people driving around in a golf cart. And they don't really do that so often here in Georgia because very often these HOAs just exist to manage the pool and the tennis court and the clubhouse, and they're just trying to collect money so that they can run those things for the residents. They don't collect enough money to also pay a Karen to drive around in a golf course. Like if you see the HOA prices here, you would see that they're not nearly as expensive as other states. And so this also means that the HOAs aren't as restrictive. But what you find in Powder Springs is that they also tend to have neighborhoods with less HOAs, or you have more neighborhoods that don't have HOAs, is what I'm trying to say. So if you really absolutely don't want to be in an HOA, maybe you want an acre of two of land and you want to be kind of secluded from other people and you don't want that HOA feel, then you can certainly find that in Powder Springs because it's farther away from the city of Atlanta. It's a bit more rural than Marietta, so you can certainly find those homes with no HOAs in Powder Springs. All of these different factors combined means that you also have a lot of families in Powder Springs, so it's a very family-friendly area. The downtown part of the city, which is like the Thurman Park area, they've got a new amphitheater there. They have lots of events there. It's not quite as big of a downtown area as Marietta or Alpharetta, but they are constantly building new things there. They're growing and expanding and improving the downtown area, and all of this is bringing more and more families to the area, making it more and more family friendly. And another big thing that those families are looking for in Powder Springs is the more affordable home prices. So let's talk about just how much you can expect to pay for a home in this amazing suburb when you're buying a home in Powder Springs. In the last 90 days, according to the MLS, the average sold price for a home in Powder Springs has been $375,000. And this is absolutely a steal compared to other excellent suburbs of Metro Atlanta. Like if you compare that to Marietta, where the average home sold price is closer to 450, or Alpharetta, where the average sold price is like 700 or 750, that $375,000 price tag in Powder Springs with a 9 out of 10 school and family friendly kind of environment is absolutely a great deal. Not only that, but you can find homes in Powder Springs as low as 325. 375 is really just the average, so you can find homes much lower. Now, you don't want to get too close to the 300 mark. I would say right around 300 is where the homes start to get kind of iffy and maybe, would require a lot of work. And so I would say 325, you can definitely find a great deal on a home, 3-bed, 2-bath, move-in ready. Certainly possible. And then the average is 375. So you can, no question, find a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home in Powder Springs for about 400,000. That's very common in this suburb. And then another big factor that many people are looking for is an area that has a kind of diversity in the cultures and the races. Of course, we don't want to be in an area that's all one culture and you're not being exposed to multiple cultures or ways of thinking. So having that kind of racial diversity is super important to many people, and you can definitely find that in Powder Springs. According to the website datausa.io, Powder Springs is 50% African American, 27% white, and 15% Hispanic. So you can definitely find multiple kinds of races or cultures or ethnicities there in this city, and this is absolutely a big plus of living here. Also, because it's so far out, because it's kind of an hour away from Atlanta, this is also the area where we're seeing the most amount of upside. So people who are looking for a home where you're going to have appreciation in the home values are typically looking at this distance away from Atlanta. Areas like Powder Springs or Dallas or Beaufort or, Canton, this kind of part of the Metro Atlanta area that's on the outskirts of Metro Atlanta. These are the areas that tend to have the highest potential for home appreciation, which is another big reason why so many people are moving to Powder Springs. Now, of course, there are some downsides to living here. Every suburb of Metro Atlanta has the downsides, and there are a few things that you really need to know about when it comes to moving to Powder Springs. In fact, I made an entire video covering those things. You can check out these 7 things you need to know before moving to Powder Springs. I'll see you in the next video.